Good day to be indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut. He didn't cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Kadagi to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. We discuss local, national, Native news and events, and as you know, Chujunk, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
Yes, you are right, Dega. This portion of the show is supported by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition. Hey,
we got a big day here. We got we're switched up a lineup here. We got State Senator Mary Kunesh on today, Representative Heather Keeler, Robert Lilligren, and our friend Ruth Buffalo stopping in and talking about how the importance of this election is and how they're feeling right now. I know I'm feeling really good and optimistic. And then later on tonight, 9 to 11 here on AM 950, we'll be stopping in, and I'm going to drag Robert Lilligren on with us too a couple times with the team from 9 with Bruce and Brett Johnson, and we're going to be talking about the results, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about some really exciting things. But before I get really too far into it, we have the great State Senator Mary Kunesh on to check in on Election Day. Welcome, as always, to Native Roots Radio.
Hamatakiape, everybody.
Well, I'm excited. I don't know. Call me dum-dum or whatever, but I'm super excited when I hear that 20% more women are voting than men and that the young vote's out. I'm very excited for what's going to happen tonight.
I think it will be a really interesting result. And like you said, there are different communities, different groups that are probably going to come out stronger than they ever have before. If you remember a couple years ago, it was really kind of the Indian nations, Indian country that pushed the ticket for Joe Biden. And so there's so many different organizations, so many different groups that are really excited about Kamala Harris and Tim Walz that we haven't really, seen their impact in the past. I'm thinking of the Latino votes. I'm thinking of the African American, and both the male and female. There's a lot at stake for all of them, not just our Native folks and the regular folks, but these are groups that have been generally disenfranchised from voting, and I hope that we're going to see some really incredible results.
Yeah, what are you going to be doing tonight? I know there's something happening downtown St. Paul. I don't think I'll be able to make it because I'm going to be glued to my TV, but what are you and your family doing?
Well, my family, I have this really large family. So we've been texting all day long about what we're seeing, what we're hearing. I have a brother that lives in Tennessee, sister in North Dakota, another sister that's over watching polls in Wisconsin, California. So far, everybody says that the polling places have been relatively quiet and orderly. I haven't heard any stories of repression of voting, but we're hopefully celebrating Ann Johnson Stewart joining us in the Minnesota Senate. She's our one and only special election in the Senate, and we really need to have her there to keep our majority so we can do all that great work that was just the previous ad just listed off all those incredible work. And as we were listening to them, I'm like, damn, I think I had all those bills.
Yeah.
I think I passed all those pieces of legislation. But there is a big get together downtown at the Intercontinental. And then in my district, like my reps are, all the reps in Minnesota are up for re-election. So there'll be watch parties. I mean, I could probably hop to a watch party every hour on the hour tonight.
Yeah, well, be careful. It's raining, and I'm old now, so I don't like going out in the dark in the rain. But we're gonna have the grandchildren and the son-in-law and daughter here, and we're gonna eat, and then we're gonna jump on the radio at 9 for a couple check-ins with the AM 950, and so we're really excited and optimistic here in St. Paul, and it sounds like you are too. And your family, what else have they said around the country? I know you have a big family. Are they excited too?
Yeah, they actually are. We discuss a lot about politics across the nation because we live in such diverse places. Talk a lot about how elections are different in the different states. So, for example, in North Dakota, you don't have to pre-register. You don't have to go get registered ahead of time or at the time of place. You just have to prove it. Down in Tennessee, pretty similar to us, they hold off on their day of ballots for a day or two. So it's just really interesting to see that variation in different states in how they vote and how they count their tickets. But I'm hoping that there aren't any big challenges like there were the last time.
Yeah, there are already a lot of challenges, and I think the Democrats are pretty on top of it with getting this through court and quick. But I feel like it's going to be a blue tsunami, and I think we're going to know by tonight who won this. And from your lips
to the those that make decisions in this world, that would be right. Fabulous.
Yeah. Well, and I got to just say this too, State Senator, is that one of the things that's really come out, and we talk about this on the show about all your work and the legislators' work on all these great bills. The governor has been able to amplify it even nationally about the great work that you guys do, and he signs the bills. So it's the boots on the ground with the state legislators and the senators that really have been making things happen here too.
Oh, 100%. It's so interesting. Like this summer, I think I mentioned I did a lot of traveling around because I'm the chair of the National Council of American Indian Legislators. And as we, as I explained some of the things that we were able to get done and the different legislators, native legislators from other states were talking about how they struggled to get anything done. Like the question was, how did we do it? And honestly, I said, you need to have a Democrat trifecta. Otherwise, we would not have been as successful as we have been these last 2 years for sure. Mm-hmm. And I think Minnesota will be under the microscope for the next 4 years. Hopefully, again, knock on wood, because of our potential vice president.
Yeah.
But it's been really great to have those kudos from, nationally about all the good work we've been able to do. And it's not just the, it's not just the things that we've done for Indian country in Minnesota, but the things that we've been able to do across the state that has really positive outcomes and consequences for everybody in our state, not just Indian country. So when we do well, everybody does well.
Absolutely. State Senator Mary Kunesh of Minnesota, thank you so much for stopping in, and we'll have a fun conversation this Friday, I believe, about the future of this country and the future of Minnesota. Pinagee, right, for all the work you do for us, and thanks for stopping in on this special night.
You bet. Get out and vote, everyone.
Right on. Hey, this is Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and we'll be right back after this short break, Haley.
Stay with us.
Yes.
When we heal from our traumas.
When we face our fears.
Let go of our addictions.
When we relearn our values.
When we live our teachings.
Respecting our elders.
Cherishing and honoring our children.
When we honor and take care of our spirit.
There will be no room left for sexual violence.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
This November, we have a clear choice for who's truly fighting for our Indigenous communities in Minnesota. Democrats created the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Task Force, made college tuition free for Native scholars, and legally affirmed our Native sovereignty. By signing co-stewardship agreements to manage federal lands, we return the lands of the Upper Sioux State Park to the Upper Sioux Tribe and over 11,000 acres back to the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwa. This November, vote for the party that stands with our community. Vote Democrat.
Paid for by the Democratic Farmer Labor Party.
For everything you need to know about voting in Minnesota, visit the Secretary of State's website at mnvotes.org. Find out where to vote, check registration status, and view sample ballots. Again, for all your voting information, go to mnvotes.org. For nearly 10 years, Make Voting a Tradition has empowered Native American communities by bringing friends and families together to talk about important issues. NVAT is increasing voter turnout and ensuring Native voices shape the future. This election season, skip the crowds and vote early in Minnesota. Elders and busy voters can vote in person before Election Day. Find your early voting location at sos.state.mn.us. Let's make voting a lasting tradition for generations to come.
Hi, this is Representative Sharice Davids from Kansas. I'm Ho Chunk, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by Native American Community Clinic on Franklin Avenue in Minneapolis, honoring health and tradition.
Hey, we have our friend Ruth Buffalo, CEO of Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center, but also a former politician here, and it's great to see you on election night. And I don't know, are you always a former or sometimes ex-legislator? But great to see you, and wow, I'm really excited and welcome.
Oh, Matsugiras, yes, Dosha, thank you for having me.
Yeah, do you guys feel excited as we do here on Native Roots Radio? I feel really, hey, we have the same shirt on, too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely excited for sure. Yeah, I think it's just a day full of nerves. I mean, I definitely feel for all of the candidates, and yeah, it's an exciting day, but yeah, I think just kind of like pacing yourself, you know, but yeah, it's exciting for sure and hoping for good outcomes.
Yeah, well, I took my normal nap, so I'm ready. And then I don't know if you've heard the show earlier that we're going to jump on a segment from 9 to 11 here too on AM 950 to give updates on Indian country too, because we have our friends out there that are running for re-election too. We have a state senator in South Dakota that's running again.
Yes, definitely rooting for Senator Red Dawn Foster. There's a couple Native women legislators in North Dakota that are running for re-election. Also a good friend who got won her election in a new district in Fargo, District 10. She's running for re-election, but because of the redistricting, she's running after 2 years of serving, kind of similar to Minnesota, but North Dakota typically is actually 4-year terms. And so definitely rooting for Representative Lisa Finley DeVille from Mandaree, also Representative Jamie Davis from Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians, and then Representative Hamida Dakani in District 10. She's a state house representative. And then, of course, across the river in Moorhead, definitely rooting for Representative Heather Keeler as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to have Heather on later on for a segment too. Ruth, we've had State Senator Mary Kunesh, yourself, then Heather, and then we're going to have Robert Lilligren on the last segment here to wrap it up. And we really appreciate you stopping in. What kind of jitters are these jitters different than when you ran for office, or because there's a lot on the line in this big election?
No, a lot of reflection for sure. Definitely support everyone. It's hard to put yourself out in public office, so that's why it's so important that we support one another and definitely walk that talk all the way around. So we voted this morning in Fargo. We drove up to Fargo last night and then drove because I'm just trying to hang on to my North Dakota residency, but also would like to go visit Leonard Peltier again, and I'm still a North Dakota resident on his visitor list, so that's kind of the hang up that I want to make sure I'm able to visit him. Lots of moving parts for sure, but we weren't able to make it back to MHA for our tribal elections in West segment there. There's a runoff as well, and the primary there was a close between 2 to 4 votes. So I'm, subconsciously holding my breath, hoping that it doesn't come down to 2 votes there, but definitely a lot of reflection voting in Fargo today. Long lines. We got there a little bit after 7 a.m. But yes, definitely rooting for all of the candidates, put so much time and energy and hope that they take good care of themselves, win or lose, but winning, of course, for sure, celebrate and then get back in there. But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic to be, referred to as a politician. I think it's kind of hard. I was telling my husband today, it's like kind of hard as we're standing in line, waiting to vote, just the reflections of like how life is after the elections or after you're no longer in public office, it is sort of hard to like come back to regular life too, because you're kind of almost like labeled for life as a politician, and when you're just like want to be treated like a regular person.
Well, it's got to be hard too, because in theory, you know too much too. you know a lot of more than normal voters do about processes and people and things like that. So that's kind of got to be hard too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely I think that was one thing, I was sharing with my husband is like, that's something I think individuals should consider, when you are running for office and if and when you do win. And then if and when you decide to step away from the political realm, but you really can't step away from the political realm, I think, especially being born into a unique political relationship with the United States federal government as Indian people or peoples of these lands. I think it's an interesting thing, but life does move on, but it is an interesting thing where it's just an interesting thing. It's a good thing, but it does have its like unintended consequences. But another time to share more of that. But right now, yes, I just we hope that the outcome is good. But either way, we still have to keep pushing for things to go better. I just hope that things don't escalate. I hope things are on a de-escalation mode, to where there's no violence, where there's more common ground, because that's, exhausting and it's chips away at everybody's life expectancy, whether we choose to believe that or not. Chronic stress leads to chronic illness. So how do we become good relatives so that we can all live good, healthy, long lives?
Absolutely. So is this the first time your daughter has been able to vote for president?
Yes, I believe so. Yep. And then in the next election, that's what my husband was saying today too, is that our son will be voting in the next presidential election because he's 17. But yeah, our daughter is 21. So this was, her first presidential election.
That's exciting. Did you all go to vote together?
Yes. Yep. We all voted this morning a little after 7 a.m. and it was packed. It was really packed in Fargo, South Fargo.
So do you I feel like if it's a big turnout, it's good for the Democrats. So did you get that vibe at all?
Hard Hard to say, hard to say because it is North Dakota and it's a bright red state, so really hard to say. It was super quiet in there too. It was like, and it was held in a church, and that was the interesting thing my husband said too, is like, don't they say separation of like church and state, but yet the polling location is a church, and quite more often than not, the polling locations are held in churches, which is kind of interesting.
Wow, absolutely. Hey, it'd be remiss for me, because you're a regular on Tuesday, if we can't just throw out some information about Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center and how what's coming up, and maybe a quick, to your website and Facebook.
Sure. MIWRC.org will link you to all of our social medias, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We have our women's luncheon this Wednesday. So stop by. All of that information, again, is on our website, which will link you to our Facebook pages. Super excited. Things are moving along and progressing in a good way. We have our just laugh at myself. It sounded like I said in a good way. Someone was saying, for Native American Heritage Month, make sure you say that more often. But we have our groundbreaking celebration November 20th. Everyone's invited. That's from 10:30 to noon here in the South Courtyard. But yeah, check back we have, sweat this week. We're going to start having women's sweats. We are also one of the main partners, or one of the key partners, helpers in the movement towards getting an American Indian Birth Center here. So we are busy helping with that as well, and have a lot of events this week where our staff will be engaging in some pretty cool conversations with Lemoyne LaPointe and Mark Anderson from the Barbara Schneider for what could be called strategic planning sessions, but they, refer to it as something else, like the 5 Eyes process. So really looking forward to diving deep into that process tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. And so with that, our offices are going to be shut down a few hours for the rest of the week, so that we can do some pretty in-depth planning with Lemoyne LaPointe and Mark Anderson.
Wow, some good elders there in the community and well-known people. That sounds really exciting. Well, Ruth Buffalo, thank you so much for stopping in. We really appreciate it. We know you're really busy, but we just wanted to get your perspective of what's going on today, and it's exciting, and I feel really good.
Yes, likewise. Hoping for the best, for sure.
Right on.
Thank you. Yeah.
We'll talk to you soon. Hey, that was Ruth Buffalo. Haley, a lot of exciting things happening at Minnesota Indian Resource Center, a Women's Resource Center. Just exciting to have her on.
Yeah, always. We'll be right back after this break with State Representative Heather Keeler.
Ho!
You're listening to Native Roots Radio. This is Spirit from Reservation Dogs. Get up and listen.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by Native American Community Development Institute with Make Voting a Tradition in Minneapolis.
Hey, we are here with Heather Keeler, Minnesota State Representative, and always great to see you, Heather. And also, I'm really excited. You are up for re-election. How do you feel? This is a night that I feel really excited about.
I mean, I feel tired. I think that's, we've been working really, really, really hard. I think I've kind of talked to some of you guys about our sister districts and how that works. I've been lucky enough to win my district by enough of a margin that I'm considered like a safe seat. But that doesn't mean that we don't work. We work in our own communities, but then I've been spending a lot of time up in Red Lake and Bemidji, as you guys know, to try to turn out the vote up there. I'm the blue dot in a massively red sea in the entire west side of the state. So having, some more representation would be ideal. And so I think it's like the end of a marathon, when your body's just tired. We were out knocking today, just reminding people to go until 8, stay in line. That's the main thing right now, right? Like if you're in line at 8 p.m., stay in line. We're having fantastic turnout up north and in Leech Lake, White Earth, Red Lake, which is great. But that means, there's like a 20 to 30 minute wait. And so we're just trying to encourage everybody to tell your friends and tell your family, stay in line, even if that means it's after 8 p.m.
Well, we, as reported yesterday, we have 1.1 million people that voted in Minnesota already, and that's always good. And you mentioned there's a lot of people, but I also want to swing back to mental health, and we forget because we think of people like you as being superheroes, and you're a normal person in a lot of ways and built like all of us. What are you doing for your mental health right now?
I think that's a good question, right? For like all of us, I feel like, I said today, my heart is just racing so fast. I can't sleep. I can't eat. Like, right. I just don't know how to feel because there's so much on the line. I think when people say every election is big, that matters. But when sovereignty is on the line, like for Native people, that's rocking us to the core. I mean, that's so much bigger than us and bigger than our generations. And so like my mental health or my holistic health is just off. And I think it's so much more than my own election. If I'm being quite frank, like I'm not really worried about my election. I do good in my community. My community supports me. It's Minnesota trying to hang on to the trifecta so we can continue to do the wonderful work that we're doing. It's the upper ticket because like, how cool would it be for Peggy to be our governor? I think like we prove what happens when the Native vote turns out and we have Native representation at the table. We do fantastic things for Native like country.
Yeah, that's a really good point, the trifecta. And we talked a little bit, we had State Senator Mary Kunesh on earlier, and about all the work. We want to remind everyone that all the work that's being amplified that the governor has signed is the work that you've done and the legislators in the Senate. So it's exciting to hear that, but also we have to remind everyone, too, the hard work that's been put in, especially by you, State Senator. State Representative, I did it.
Oh, he did it. Haley. I think that means I get to take over the show at least a couple times from here on out, right?
Oh, on the day of all days.
Oh, my God.
On the day of all days. I will never be a senator. Stop saying that.
You could,
but what was the question? Did you ask me a question in that? I totally got derailed.
Is my mic on? Is my mic on?
I could mute you. No,
yeah. No, it just all the great work that you've done as a state representative and also the Senate, and it's being amplified by the governor by running for vice president. But you guys were the boots on the ground.
We are. I think that's why it's important to remember that local elections are really what matters. We're the driving force of what happens here. You have people on your ballot. They're county commissioners, city council, school board, soil and water, judges, right? Like there's a lot that's on the ballot and everything like plays a role in your life. And the reality is it's the local candidates and the state level candidates that have the most impact on your life. I know everybody's caught up on the presidential ticket, which we should be. But the truth is don't sleep on what we're doing at the state level. Minnesota did fantastic things because of who we put at the table. I say this all the time. My class came in, like we talk about Kayla Berg being a flight attendant, liaisons, social workers. And then the class after us were teachers, nurses, were compassionate people showing up at the table to do good work. And so it's been nice that he's shared the work that we've done. But yeah, I think giving credit to the House and the Senate is absolutely where credit is due. Absolutely.
And, it's interesting, too, because prior to that, when we didn't have the trifecta, there wasn't nothing getting done really, and especially with the Senate.
We did some things granted, we did great things in the trifecta, but when we had the GOP Senate, that was my first year in, or my first term in. And one of the things we did there, that's when we created the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Relatives Office. That's when we created the line items for the $1 million for each tribal college. We had to work across the aisle. And so, though obviously I say often, I lean into the Democratic Party for purposes that we all know. We all know we outwardly support sovereignty. But I don't want to sleep on the fact that we did get work done when we work across the aisle. I am a bipartisan legislator through and through, and I do believe that there are slivers of commonality, and I believe sovereignty is a bipartisan issue. It's not just Democrats. If we're going to do the good work that we have to do for our tribal nations, we have to work on building those relationships on both sides. And that's the thing I really love about like how I do the work, how Reed Olson does the work, how Michael Reyes does the work, is we know and we understand that blending who we are is actually how we do the best work. And so I do have to pause us because we did get some things done. Not that I would ever want to go back to that situation, because it's much more fun when we're in the trifecta. But we have good legislators. We have good legislators that know how to work across the aisle to get the things done that matter to Minnesota.
Yeah, I stand corrected, and that's a great point. I appreciate you bringing that up. You are correct, and that's strike two now. Let's see, Senator, and your first Haley, mute me. No, I'm just kidding. Well,
we're going to get the 1 minute notice soon, so you don't have much more time. Strike three is coming, though, huh?
Yeah. Hey, so what are your plans tonight? You've already voted.
We have a couple like watch parties. The one thing I've done a lot with is I've door knocked with our local candidates through and through. I actually convinced my campaign manager to run for city council because that's how much this work matters. So we'll spend a little bit of time together. It's interesting. It's my first campaign sober. And that's one thing too, that like the anxiety I think that I feel to protect our next generation. There's also this internal piece. You asked about my mental health, but it's been walking through the anxieties of it sober. And I just want to lean into people who maybe are feeling that or walk through that and acknowledge I've come across a lot of people who have been walking a healthy path for a long time. Robert, you're one of them. And like just leaning into the people who have taught me in that way, I'm really grateful, but also just want to give a message of encouragement in this moment. This is very stressful. And we're just proud of the work that all of you are doing out there to take care of yourselves and check in on each other. Because this is hard. This work is hard. A lot of us are going through a lot right now.
Well, and you're a family person too. And how exciting was it to see your son vote for the first time?
That was super cool. He actually came back from college. We went on the first day of early voting. And it's cool because he's done a lot of outreach to his friends to make sure that they know how to vote. He's helping them talk through who the candidates are and why he supports things. I made it on his Instagram story today, which is like, if you have an 18-year-old and your mom and you make it on their IG story, right? Like you're pretty legit. But I love that. I say all the time, like I've done this work for my kids, and now like my favorite constituent is my son. And I take what he says really serious. I take his input to heart, and his support really matters. So that was like super meaningful and probably one of the coolest things ever, that my 18-year-old not only went to vote with me, that we made it a family tradition, but like he got to vote for his mom. That's like one of those generational moves that, I just didn't grow up in a world like that, where those were the options.
Yeah, me either. That's great. Before we get going, we have about 3 minutes left, but I want you to mention your other business, your Two Feathers business here, and how people can get in touch with you. As you know, Heather, when you're on, we just get so many great comments about how well you speak and the passion you have, and I know that your business is really an awesome thing for people to reach out to.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's Native American Heritage Month, right? And so that is actually a big time for my company and my business. And so, yeah, I think the part about this is being elected official is only a part-time job. I don't think many people know that. It is like an act of service. We sacrifice a lot to do this work. And so I have Two Feathers Consulting. We do keynote speaking, educational components and workshops, but also long-term consulting. It's focused on areas around education, healthcare, and community engagement. Absolutely love doing it. Was able to be a keynote speaker this year for Indigenous Peoples Day. And I love doing that. It's what I've done long before I was ever an elected official. And I just like leading with love and education, and hopefully that open minds, for people to be inclusive when it comes to tribal nations and decisions that are being made. So yeah, looking for booking gigs, right? Like that's what I do, but also looking for long-term clients to do the consultation with. And it's twofeathersllc.com is the website.
Awesome. I just had the sneeze button on. So what would you tell people? We have roughly 2 hours and 15 minutes left in the polls that are listening that are like in between not wanting to vote. It's raining and poopy out here. And what would you tell them?
There's a lot on the line. I mean, I get emotional talking about it because as an Indigenous queer woman, there is a lot on the line for us. And you know, I often say from the athlete standpoint, there comes a point in your season when like the work you did in the off season shows up, right? And so like we've done a lot of work, but there's still a lot of time left in the game, right? And like everything matters. I think the thing that I tell everybody the most is that if you look at past results, some races are decided by 6 or 7 votes. That's how many people you can fit in your van right now. Like we're finding people right now that are still going out and helping with rides, 6 or 7 votes. I'm telling you, you do not want to be part of a community that let somebody like slip away by that close. And so call everybody, make sure people who don't have transportation have a ride, change your plans, go give somebody a ride, take an umbrella with you, right? Like help watch somebody's kids tonight so that they can go do this. This matters. And it matters to people. Right. It's one thing to say it matters in the outcome, but it's been 100 years since we've been able to vote as Indigenous people. It matters to people that they are able to do what generations before us really fought for us for the right to do. And so it's meaningful to people. So lean into that, help other people. If you don't feel right voting yourself, like help other people get there. Maybe that will like change your mind a little bit, but take care of each other. Drink water, be kind, and be sure to reach out to each other and check on each other. I'm just so worried about all of us right now. We have to love on each other the most.
Right on. Thank you, State Representative Heather Keeler. You are a rock star, and we appreciate you stopping in, as always. Have a great night, and let's get our surfboards out for this big wave, blue wave.
Go vote. Go vote.
Right on. We'll be right back with Robert Lilligren, and we're going to be finishing it up here. This is Native Roots Radio.
As we age, it's important to invest in our health and to help protect it. Like the flu, COVID-19 is always changing. That's why it's important to stay up to date on your vaccines. By getting the flu and COVID-19 vaccines, you can renew your body's defenses and lower the risk of getting sick. Get your health boost and protect yourself against the flu and COVID. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Again, that's vaccines.gov. Vaccines.gov.
The Minneapolis Institute of Art is featuring the art and legacy of Jody Falwell, a groundbreaking potter from Capa Owinga, New Mexico. Over the past 50 years, Falwell has revolutionized Pueblo pottery and native art by weaving in personal, political, and social stories into her pieces. Her exhibition titled Opawa Omung shows the incredible range of her work and the impact she's had on both native and contemporary American art. You can check it out at MIA through January. For more info, visit artsmia.org.
This November, we have a clear choice for who's truly fighting for our Indigenous communities in Minnesota. Democrats created the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Task Force, made college tuition free for Native scholars, and legally affirmed our Native sovereignty. By signing co-stewardship agreements to manage federal lands, we return the lands of the Upper Sioux State Park to the Upper Sioux Tribe and over 11,000 acres back to the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwa. This November, vote for the party that stands with our community. Vote Democrat.
Paid for by the Democratic Farmer Labor Party.
For everything you need to know about voting in Minnesota, visit the Secretary of State's website at mnvotes.org. Find out where to vote, check registration status, and view sample ballots. Again, for all your voting information, go to mnvotes.org.
This is Leonard Peltier. I am in Coleman 1, U.S. Penitentiary, and I'm listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
Ow!
How?
Ow! Right on. Hey, I want to just remind everyone out there that we're going to be going live 7 to 9 here on AM 950 with updates in the political. We got rock stars Matt McNeil and Jeff Stein and Cliff Sheffer. And then at 9 p.m., we're going to be joining Bruce and Brett Johnson, and 9 to 11. And our friend Robert Lilligren and I are going to jump on that and give out some results. Robert, thank you so much for coming in on such short notice, but this has been a kind of a rock star show today, and I appreciate you coming in.
Great. Bonjour, Haley. Bonjour, Robert. It's always great to be here. Thanks for the invitation. I'll say I'm probably the cleanup, right? You had the rock stars on earlier, and now it's me.
Yeah. No. Hey, your organization that you work with, making voting tradition, I stopped by there today. Big billboard. It was raining, but people were excited and getting the work done.
They are getting the work done. It's so impressive. So the organization I work for, Native American Community Development Institute, or NACD, has about a 10-year-old program now called Make Voting a Tradition, and it's just growing every year. Of course, during presidential elections, there's a lot of interest, excitement, and resources that come forward. We've been able to fan out and work with reservation communities as well. And it's been drawing a lot of media attention, which is helpful. And I got to tell you, and we talked about this last Thursday as well, the amazing thing to me, and, you know, I've been around campaigns and politics for a long time, and I tried to engage Native voters for all of that time. And 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, it was an uphill battle. Attitudes toward voting were not surprisingly fairly negative. And now there's just this enthusiasm. Like if you were around today, you know, we had the whole setup in the parking lot, the big Jumbotron billboard with Native arts and pro-voting messages by Native artists. And there's just this excitement and interest and enthusiasm around voting. And to me, that's the big part, right? That's the systems change, the culture change that we're seeking through Make Voting a Tradition.
I love hearing that story, and I can feel it too. I didn't know what I was feeling, but you know, these cycles and the work that that organization, Make Voting a Tradition, and Native American Community Development Institute have been doing over the years, it works. It might inch by inch it's cinch, yard by yard it's hard, and I really seen the work, and it's really come to fruition. And you know, all pistons are running right now, and I'm excited.
I am super excited, and I love what you just said. We've been talking about this a lot around NACD, and you know how to change systems, right? And you don't change them by jumping in and trying to shift this whole system. You change them one person at a time. You change hearts and minds one person at a time. And I think one of the beauties of Make Voting a Tradition is it's Native people, right? Reaching out to Native people and addressing their concerns. And there were a lot of Native people who were actually kind of engaged this cycle that were really uncertain about even voting in the presidential election. Mm-hmm. So being able to shift those people into the yes, you need to vote category. It's been a very rewarding year.
What are we looking for tonight? And I know you'll be on a couple laptops, your iPad, and your TV, and you'll be giving us some expert updates here at 9 o'clock on AM 950. What are we looking at?
So I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I am going to be watching probably about 40 different races and flipping from tabs to tab, between tabs, and watching any coverage I can get a hold of. I think one of the things we're looking for, and you can already see this, is high turnout, right? And we're seeing record turnout in states like Michigan and Georgia, and I think that bodes very well for Kamala Harris, and across the country you're seeing that higher than usual turnout and unusual pockets of voters that are turning out. So I think that's exciting. I think also looking at the gender percentages of people voting, and women came on very strong right at the end for Harris, and have completely flipped the charts on that. Of course, new voters, right? And they're hard to get a grasp on. We don't really know who they are or where they're going, but I would say in general, we can think new voters are good for Democrats.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you and I talked about this, but I heard that 20% more women are voting, and that really might end up being the Rovember that we've been talking about.
I agree, and I think those numbers are very encouraging. And it was an interesting peak in elder women voters as well. And they really migrated to Harris right at the end of the day. And so I'm envisioning what you were just talking about, Robert, this blue wave. Let's get out our surfboards. I think this could happen. And, as I said, from the first moments that President Biden stepped aside and passed the torch, and thank you, President Biden. But I think that Harris has the possibility of really bringing up those down ballot races. And so I think unpredictable things are going to happen tonight. I would say what is predictable is that there'll be objections from the Trump campaign and maybe even violence. And at my organization and a lot of organizations, we've done contingency safety planning for our staff so people can stay safe. And in Minnesota, of course, we went through the George Floyd riots, which were very unsafe for a lot of people, and of course, COVID. So we kind of have a plan sketched in, but it's sad and kind of surprising, but I guess inevitable this cycle that we have to make sure that we're protecting ourselves and our workers.
Yeah, I understand. That's why we're just having immediate family over and watching the results. And of course, at 9:00, we're going to jump in and hopefully know some trends at the very least, what's happening. Cool. I know there's some Native people up north running. We got the North and South Dakota natives running, and we'll be keeping an eye on that. Representation, as you know, is so important, and we got to keep our trifecta here in Minnesota.
There you go. And having a place at the table, right? When I was first elected to the Minneapolis City Council, I'm trying to remember the numbers. Don't quote me on this, but it was in the dozens, of Native elected officials at the time. And there's been a wonderful rise in that number at all levels, and people like our excellent Lieutenant Governor, soon to be Governor, my White Earth sister Peggy Flanagan, people like Deb Haaland, Sharice Davids. I mean, they've just lifted the profile, not just of Native politicians, but of Native people, and expressed that we're contemporary people, right? And we count. And so this election cycle, I don't expect anyone to say was it something else? Was that last cycle? Wow. Native voters were classified as something else. Right. And, this year, I think there's a strong awareness, as Heather Keeler was just saying, that Native votes can swing elections.
We only got a minute left to end the show here, Robert. I just want you to, for 30 seconds here, talk about how exciting and how great it would be for the state of Minnesota that we have Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan as our governor.
I think it's super exciting. I think I've shared this with you before, that within seconds of Kamala entering the race, I knew Waltz was going to be her running mate with certainty. I don't know why. I just knew it. And I said, the coolest thing is that we'll have a Native governor following him, a first woman governor, which I can't even believe in Minnesota that she'll be our first. But not just historic. She's a great politician. She is very people focused, and she is ready to be our governor.
Absolutely. Robert Lilligren, Native American Community Development Institute CEO and President, thank you so much for being on, and we'll talk to you later tonight.
Sounds good. See you, Haley. See you on the other side.
Right on. We're still here. We are the seventh generation.
Vote and free Leonard Peltier now.